He calls it the Google for first responders. And in a minute, we'll introduce you to the man who raised $22 million in lured investors, including Star Wars creator George Lucas and his wife, Mellody Hobson. Coming up right now at the Nasdaq. Hello, everyone. This is Jabari Young, senior writer here at Forbes, and I am at the Nasdaq MarketSite, joined by McGregor. He is the CEO of ForceMetrics. Now, this is a decision assist software as a service company based in Denver, and it helps first responders gather intel right on the spot, making things a little bit easier for first responders in the field. And Andre, you're also a former exec at Goldman Sachs and a former FBI agent. Getting into all of that, welcome to the Nasdaq, so I appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This is your first time here. We're just talking about on camera, but you gotta give me a stock. Everybody that comes to the Nasdaq, I always say you gotta give me a stock, right? That's something that's worked well for you, or maybe you want to buy, right? What's a little tip that you got?
I was just looking at, Amazon is...
Amazon.
I can't hate against Amazon. I can't. My wife is like, yep, all the time, so we put money there.
Yeah, I mean, listen, every single time you come home, there's Amazon packages all over the ground, right? Logistics, Amazon, you can't go wrong there. Yeah.
That, and I won't throw out, Axon's always good, too.
Yeah.
It's obviously in the industry I'm in.
Well, listen, man, you gave us two, you might as well make it three, right? Third time's a charm, right? You gave us Axon, Amazon, what's the third one?
I got to put some love to Starbucks.
Starbucks, all right. And they're a little down right now.
But Mellody Hobson has done a great job in terms of the support that she's provided for us, and I think that'll continue.
Absolutely. Another CEO that Starbucks have, and we all love a good caramel macchiato every now and then. Andre, man, before we get into the news, I have to ask you, one of your investors, right? He was laughing. He says, ask him how did he sleep last night? Because you have a newborn, a 4-year-old boy or girl?
Boy,
man. How is it being a dad? First of all, I'm a girl dad, right? And welcome to the club, right?
Yeah.
Got to send your Father's Day gift. How is it so far for you?
Amazing. Yeah. So I'll have to say I've done a lot in my life. I've been in burning buildings.
Yeah.
I've been in some gnarly fights. And being a dad is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. Yeah. But that first day that he was born was amazing.
Yeah, just wait till you start putting the sentences together, man, and having conversations with you.
Hopefully not talking back too much.
Oh, no, it's coming. It's coming. I'm telling you, it's coming, man.
My wife wants us to be a girl dad next time. So.
Yeah, hey, man, listen, that's the best thing in the world, right? And it's a major responsibility. The first man, right, that she's going to love in her life would be you. So you have to have a great example for her.
Well, she already loves him a little bit more.
Well, hey, man, listen, let's jump into some news. Again, you're coming off of a $22 million capital raise from investors, right, including Star Wars creator George Lucas, his wife, Mellody Hobson, the chair of the board of Starbucks. And this company now is valued at $53 million, correct?
Yep.
Right? That's up from $32 million, according to Pitch Books. Growth Warrior Capital, had a chance to talk to your investor there, as well as Costa Noah Ventures. They led this round as a part of their $275 million Fund 5 that they have. Again, a decision assist software as a service company. Take me inside of ForceMetrics and what you're going to do with these funds.
Yeah, think of decision assist as almost like a portmanteau of like decision making and AI assist, right? We create a platform to have better decision making for patrol and dispatch taking 911 calls.
Yeah.
So as we've seen the success of the application so far, 30 cities in 11 states, we need more people using it.
Yeah.
I think we need more people out there passing the message on, whether through sales, but also we've also shown police departments that you can trust your technology and you can trust your data. So now we have police departments saying, well, if you can do that, can you do this? So we now need to build more in engineering.
Yeah. I called my family, and I have some police officers who are my family. I called my cousin. He's with the Philadelphia Police Department. I don't want to say his name, but I called him up and I was talking about your tech yesterday. Now, you let me know if I'm wrong, right? Now, this particular tech, if I get pulled over by the cops, and we all have been there, the police, the officer who pulls me over, he'll eventually let me go, but he pulls me over and he can access a whole bunch of data that maybe some police officers or the police departments do not have access to right now. I'm talking data that is outside of the normal realm of your, basic data. I mean, they get their data that's inside of police departments, your name, address, license, and all that. But you're saying that there's another specific set of core data that they can pull up, maybe things like mental health and things that can help officers make better decisions while they're pulling you over. And it can help escalate or de-escalate, because a matter of time that they pull you over, they got all access to all this information right there at the palm palm of their hands, it may help that particular situation. Maybe you can get out of there faster before a situation, gets escalated. Did I explain that correctly?
You did. I think the example I like to give is you just said you got pulled over. There's a couple things going on. In your head, you're wondering, why did I get pulled over? Yeah. And does this person think I'm a bad person, right? What information do they know about me? On the other end, the officer's saying, is this person dangerous? Is this person trying to kill me, kill someone else? And then what do I need to know about them to make a better decision? And oftentimes they don't have any information. I met a San Francisco police officer. He says, I go into calls every day. I have no information about anyone at that house or anyone in that car except maybe a name. Well, we surface information from prior engagements, other systems within the city to say, okay, not only do we have your name and other information, has there been a history of domestic violence or homelessness or prior military? You're deaf and hearing impaired, that's why you didn't pull over. Suicidal ideations, even autism or dementia, because oftentimes it's written somewhere else.
Right.
And it's written in notes, it's written in places that no one has time to read. And in that quick interaction, we're able to put it on a smartphone. We're also able to put it on their computer in the car. And when you think about that time you got pulled over and the cop's in the back and you're waiting, 10 minutes, 15 minutes goes by, you're no longer, even if they give you a warning, probably going to be, okay, thank you, sir. You're going to be a little like, why did you make me wait so long? Well, it's bad technology. I say sometimes bad technology could be escalating these situations, that the officer's not trying to sit there and wait and waste your time. They're just waiting for information to come back. So we bring AWS speeds to a lot of this stuff. All of our environments in AWS GovCloud, so it's protected. But we're bringing the speed of buying dog food on Amazon to actually looking at records within a police department.
Yeah, and I'm talking to my cousin. I'm explaining. He says, "Man, that's a lot. If I had access to all these things, that would help my job out." And I'm like, "Why?" He says, "Because these systems are so old. You have no idea." And I'm thinking, like, wait a minute, technology's old and public safety says, yes, it's old. And I said, well, officer such and such, how old is it? He says, man, like they can't pull up text the right way. I mean, it's not as efficient as it could be. Now, let me ask you though, because there are competitors that you have. Mark 43 is a big one that's out there. What data are you pulling up that other data or other companies right now that are being utilized by police that they can? Is it mental health? Is it prison, police department, prison office, prison correctional facility things that maybe was in their past? So is that the type of data?
Yeah, good question. So think of Mark 43 like Salesforce.
Right.
It's a system of record where someone's going to put in information, then it probably just sits there and waits for the next piece of information to come in. And think of our technology like the cottage industry on top of Salesforce, which is what can we surface from all this data that's just been kind of sitting there. And so when you look at the data that we bring in, it's the 911 call data, so there's a dispatcher typing in what you're saying. It might be audio that goes into that. A police officer goes, sees something, hears something, they write a report. I may take you to jail, I'm going to put them in the jail system. There might be a field investigation or Axon, evidence.com, body cam video, flock safety, and the license plate reader. There's a lot of systems that officer that we're not going to mention has to look and see if he can get information, and also do that in a couple minutes because he's got 10 calls pending, right? Yeah. So he's oftentimes just making a guess, or he's making a decision to move on, when in fact we're surfacing it quickly so that he's not wasting your time. He's not delayed to the next call, and quite frankly, you get the best outcome because I say Andre in a hoodie and Andre in a suit's the same Andre. It's just who's judging me, the time of day they're judging me, and where they're judging me.
Yeah.
So if I give you information that says Andre is in fact dangerous, surround Andre. Send 10, 15 cop cars so that he doesn't make a decision that he's going to regret. But if Andre has no history of weapons or fights, he's allowed to have a bad day. That's what 911's for. We pay tax dollars to have a number, the most widely recognized number over even other countries' emergency numbers, to say I'm having a bad day. Send a mental health co-responder, send a school resource officer, things like that.
Yeah. Where'd the name ForceMetrics, where'd that come from?
It came from a script that we wrote with a mix of words that we were looking for and where we could get a domain name.
Yeah.
So like probably the same story as many companies is what name still exists as a free domain.
Yeah.
But I've had people say, is it like police force or is it metrics of police departments, and it could be whatever you want it to be. But at the end of the day, what we've noticed is we're a safety company. Our core belief is safety starts with understanding.
Yeah.
And so we want to make sure that people know that at the end of the day, everyone deserves to be safe and not to be a victim.
Yeah.
And so, ForceMetrics is just an amalgam of some words that relate in the industry.
Yeah. Now, based in Denver, Colorado, right?
We're based in Denver, but we have employees in 10 states.
10 states.
We're a remote-only company right now. I think we'll still stay remote.
Yeah.
I think as we look at some of our talents.
Reduces your overhead. You don't have to worry about that brick and mortar, the space.
It's interesting because while people want to be at home, they also want to meet together. I think there's Jamie Dimon says there's a genius and a magic in bringing people together. So we meet quarterly, bring people together and have those conversations. But over time, people just want to be at home and work well.
Yeah, absolutely. How many employees are we looking at?
25 now.
25, right? Are you hiring? Or there's 22 million that you have?
We're hiring a lot. So please, reach out.
What are you looking for? What's ForceMetrics looking for?
So sales, of course, go to market, marketing. Getting our name out there is important, but also just more territory. So it's an interesting industry. Law enforcement really wants to touch and feel people in terms of who they're bringing in. And you got to think about, I'm dealing with people that deal with people that lie to them every day, called cops. So they're constantly learning to assess and see whether or not you're telling them the truth or not. So there's a lot of in-person relationships. On the other end, I need engineers and product managers and customer success. I actually say customer success is as important as sales, because if a police department or a city agency likes something, they tell their friends. If they don't like something, they also tell their friends. So we're going to be growing all those roles really soon.
If you had like 3 keywords that you can give to some people who may be watching this video, who may want a job, right? And hey, you can come to ForceMetrics and make sure you put these 3 keywords in your resume, because, listen, we apply now and AI is picking up these keywords. What keywords would you tell them to kind of put in their resume?
Passion.
Passion.
You have to have the same amount of passion for helping people, because we all see that we're creating software that saves lives. AI is a buzzword, but we use it in a way that we're trying to assist people to make better decisions. I think the two industries where I see AI is always going to have a human involved is police departments and emergency rooms. My Spotify, by the way, has that AI DJ, and with my 4-month-old, I play a lot of white noise, and now it's putting that into my mix for the DJ. Well, I can fast forward past that. I can't necessarily fast forward past the bad AI, sort of situation in police departments. And then the last is, I'd say, I don't actually have a third word.
Not a third one. Well, just make sure you put passion in your resume when you're going for ForceMetrics, though, right? Again, you have competitors out there. What's revenue looking like for ForceMetrics? Is it profitable yet?
We're getting there.
They're getting there.
So we have a few million so far.
Okay. Over annual recurring revenue?
I would say right now, annual recurring revenue, we're still single digits.
Okay.
Next year we should be, double digits, which is great. With some of the strategic partnerships that we're going to be announcing soon, I think we'll even blow past that, quite frankly, because, when we look at some of the cities that we're in, they immediately get it. They immediately get what we're doing, and they're asking us to do more and more and more.
Yeah, well, I was looking at one of your news reports in North Carolina, and the police department down there seemed like, the efficiency and the speed of which they get this information, they seemed very, very pleased. So, if you had to look at the police departments as a whole, what's the biggest positive surprise? Because they're your customers. What are they telling you? The biggest positive surprise?
I did not expect going in that the number one thing that they love is speed.
Speed.
And I think it could always be faster.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, you don't get it. Our systems are very slow. Probably the same officer that we were talking about earlier.
The police, that's what they said.
Right. It's slow for them to bring data up. Yeah. It's hard for them, and so the speed is number one. Number two is the universal nature of our application for all roles in a department. So what I mean by that is we developed it for patrol and dispatch. Again, the people that are on the front lines that are answering my mother's 911 call. We have records clerks using it for public records requests. Think that, hey, I'm looking up Jabari's information, and normally it would take me weeks to get that information to him. Now I can get it to him same day. Public information officers and chiefs are being asked questions on scene. Instead of saying, I'll get back to you, they can pull it out on their phone and they can actually answer those questions. So we didn't go in expecting that other uses like this would happen. We even have animal control code enforcement using it to say, hey, we had one city where animal control solved a homicide.
Wow.
And when you think about that, the way I look at it is we're allowing humans that we hired to have critical thinking, to do their job and even go further. We just are unlocking that ability. That's amazing for someone in that role to be able to solve a homicide.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, in talking to your investors, I asked them to describe you in a few words, and then when some of you were at Growth Warrior, they said, Andre's say-do ratio is off the charts. Say-do ratio is off the charts. Another called you dangerous, and then someone called you mission-driven. What's it like to be CEO of ForceMetrics?
It was funny because I was thinking about this this morning. I said, I didn't expect to go into this role. I just, 2020 was a tough year. for a lot of reasons. And I just had an idea, and I had some friends that I spoke to that said, hey, let's explore this a little bit. And next thing you know, we had a business, and next thing we know, we had other people that weren't the original founders involved, and next thing you know, we had cities trusting us, and next thing you know, they said this solved a school shooting issue that they were able to identify a school shooter in seconds, things like that. Being CEO has been an amazing job. I realize my job is I'm a cheerleader. I'm a cheerleader to our investors. I'm a cheerleader to my team. I'm a cheerleader to our customers. And then I have an amazing team that I just get to trust to build product and go work with our customers and build the rest of the company.
Sounds like you delegated pretty well, because part of being CEO is you have to go from being a fire starter to being a delegator, right? Somebody who has this idea and you finally implement it to finally saying, you know what, I got to hire people, because you have so many things on your plate. Was that a key? Did it affect
Very hard. It delegated a lot, which allows for me to be able to be here with you right now and work still being done. But my baby, right? Like any other, right? So you want to be in the middle, and what you realize is you got to put people in trusted positions and get that information that you need, but then allow them to continue to grow. And my job is to hire people smarter than me, and ideally hire people that can take over my role. I don't want to lose my role, but I want people to feel like they have a place to move up in the organization. So every one of our hires should feel like there's a pathway for them to get to somewhere else in the company.
And you're busy. You got a newborn that you got to do. Anyway.
and my wife.
That's right. And your wife too.
Yes,
right? That's right.
Please.
Well, let's flash back into your childhood right fast, because you grew up in Denver, right? But you have some New York background. Your grandmom, right? You guys came to New York, and your grandmom lived in Denver, and she kept you and your brother there and told you and your parents, if you want them back, you're gonna come and get them, and it forced your parents to move to Denver. I've been to Denver before. It's a very beautiful city. I only hate the fact that the airport is so far away from the actual city, but what was that like growing up in Denver for you?
Yeah, good question. So parents are Jamaican. The two cheapest flights are gonna be to Florida and New York, so they end up in New York, tenement housing in Queens, where the landlord will shut off the heat, and like you said, my grandmother is out in Colorado, out in Denver with my aunt and my uncle, and my brothers went out there to visit, and she said, if you want them back, you got to come out here. And so my mom and dad drove out to Denver, and we lived one house away from my grandmother.
All in the same block.
Oh, which is ironic because now my mother lives across the street from me.
Wow.
So
in the mansion across the street from your mansion?
Oh no, we live in. What's funny is I grew up in gangland in the 90s. The Bloods and the Crips came out to Denver, and they had a summer of violence in the 90s. There was a drive-by, and a bullet almost hit me in the head sleeping on the couch. And so I know what it's like to live in that world. I now live half a mile from where I grew up, and it's a different neighborhood because. When you start to think about the changes that are happening in Denver and the neighborhood that we're in, they happened, and I live in the neighborhood I grew up in, which is a really great experience. But, going back to my time in Denver, I was just a kid just trying to live, and, I was 12 years old. Dad had a cardiac arrest. He's still alive, but he was...
at his brother's funeral.
Yep, at his brother's funeral, and, it was one of those things that, taught me I want to help people that I've never met before, because my dad is alive because a nurse across the street said, shock him again to some paramedics who said, don't tell me how to do our job. And she actually said, I'm above you, I'm telling him to shock again, and he's alive. That probably propelled me to be a firefighter, medic as well. But then my brother came out after graduating Brown, first in college, and he taught me computers. He could have gone off to Microsoft, but instead he came home, and that was what got me into computers, and he told me I needed to go to Brown, and I went to Brown.
Yes, right. You went to Brown. Good university. There's nothing wrong with Brown. But coming out of Brown, right? And you have this, fascinating life again, growing up, and I know coming up in North Philly what that can be like. But coming out of Brown, what was your ambitions? What did you want to do?
I didn't know what I wanted to be. I think I still don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I have a genuine curiosity of the human experience, so I love talking to people, I love meeting people, I love traveling. Coming out, I said I wanted to be in technology, and ended up on Wall Street, and not that far from here, and realized I like being in tech until the FBI recruited me, and then that changed my trajectory. But coming out of Brown, I was like, I'm going to go into computers, and it's the wave of the future, as they said. And they were right.
Yeah. Well, listen, at Goldman Sachs, I don't want to skip over that time right fast because it's such an important financial institution. At Goldman Sachs, you're there as a data scientist or data analyst.
I was on the engineering
side.
Engineering side. Yeah.
But then while you're there, you're living in Jersey, and this is where you decide to go and be a volunteer for EMS, and this is where you learn that skill set at, right? But while you're transitioning, going back and forth from Goldman to that job, what's the biggest piece of financial advice that you're picking up at Goldman that you still apply today?
Yeah, the thing that I realized growing up and growing up poor is I didn't have the financial acumen to really understand how to live in the city and how to invest. And the piece of advice I got is the future is not always written the way that you're expected it to be written. So investing well, understanding where your money is going to go, understanding how to grow. Compound interest is a fun thing. I didn't understand that before I actually got out here.
Yeah.
Because we were living paycheck to paycheck, credit card debt, variety of stuff. That's just what you did as growing up. And so that experience really leveled me, step increase into how I understand the financial world. I don't think I could have run this company without having that experience.
Yeah, and then like that now from the EMS and firefighter, then you get recruited to the FBI as a cybersecurity specialist, right? It's the biggest thing. You're like, what is that like to work at the FBI? Like, you got a powerful badge. You can just go around and say FBI, and everybody just got to disrespect you. You're the FBI, right?
I will say that's true.
Yeah, right.
that badge does go a long way. They teach you in the ethics course at the Quantico to not do that.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting time because I never expected to be an FBI agent. I was, I got a phone call one day.
And you actually said no to the phone call.
I did.
Here the FBI's recruiting you. You telling them no.
And I said, I'm good. I like what I'm doing. And they're like, no, we're the FBI. And I'm like, no, I get it. And they're like, just come take this test. And I was like, when did you get a call from the FBI? So I was like, all right, I'll go in. I went to the Newark field office and took this test, and it was a day in the life of an FBI agent from a logic reasoning test. And I took the test, and at the end of it, I said, damn it, I passed.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was hoping I didn't pass so I could keep on with my regular life. And then I took some more tests, and then got into Quantico, and that's when I realized, oh wait, I'm a computer engineer with soft hands, and they want me to do all this physical fitness stuff, but I also have an A-type personality, so I kind of want this. And it was a good experience because I didn't know at the time that I would be a cyber agent. All new agents come in, they work counterterrorism. So the Times Square bomber case, I got to work. The Najib al-Azazi subway bomber case, I got to work as well. Did some Italian organized crime, and then actually Nasdaq got hacked in 2010, and amongst other hacks that were there, I got to be in the cyber realm. And that's how I got propelled. They said, we need people with technology, backgrounds that are also special agents.
Yeah, wow. I mean, in an interview that I was listening to, you said that, listen, being black in America is its own thing, right? But being blue and being black, I mean, that's two different elements. And what I mean by blue is being a public officer on law enforcement and being a black man. How did you navigate it? How did you walk that line of being both? Because listening to your story, you got pulled over a number of times as well, right? As a black man, and you know what that feels like. I know what it feels like. A lot of people may not, but how did you navigate it? Because police officers get a lot of flack. I called my cousin when we're talking. He said, man, you have no idea how hard it is. Somebody can steal a Kit Kat, and I go chase them down, and I got a phone footage, and I get it. It's very, very difficult. But how did you do it? How did you navigate it?
It's hard. I would say probably until I became an FBI agent, I was probably always afraid that when I got pulled over, like hands on the steering wheel, don't make any moves. I then became an FBI agent. I still had my hands on the steering wheel, didn't move, and even though I had the badge that you said, so you're always in that position where you're saying, I don't know how that situation is going to go, so let me make sure I do everything I can to be positive, recognizing that there's only so much you can do. And then you see behind the curtain as blue, and you say, okay, you see the police involved shooting videos, you see the situations, and then even then, I had my own situation on the New Jersey Turnpike where I innocently was helping an individual that I thought was having a stroke and had caused a massive car accident, and he started punching me in the face and attacking me pretty strongly on the side of the turnpike. And I had to unholster, and I was potentially going to have to use deadly force until another agent showed up and jumped on top and got cuffs. Did not expect that. I went in on a medical situation and it changed dramatically. So when you get that experience, you realize that you're going into a lot of unknowns. You're trying to help people. Again, I was trying to help this individual. And then oftentimes you're on the ground trying to make quick decisions. And so de-escalation training, one of the big aspects of Quantico is jujitsu and knowing how you can actually, use your hands, not use deadly force. But you don't get that as a private citizen. You're seeing television. You're seeing how things could go when everything is perfect, and us oftentimes not.
Yeah, wow. Man, your story is very unique, man. I mean, again, going from, Brown, and then Goldman, and then EMS, and as a firefighter, and FBI, and here you are as a CEO now, working all of those jobs, and again, two prestigious institutions, FBI and Goldman Sachs. What did you learn about leadership?
What I learned about leadership is, people are looking up to you to have a vision, passion, and quite frankly, positive attitude. And there's a lot of different leaders that I look at. I love the principals and Bridgewater Associates, and I think they work well in a vacuum. I don't know if they work well in all businesses, but there's a lot of things that you can learn just emulating some really good leaders. But at the end of the day, when I look at leaders that I would follow, it's the passion that they have for community, for helping people rise, helping people see the positivity and things, and I think Colin Powell says it best, that leadership is convincing people that wouldn't normally do something to do it well and to the best of their ability. Because how else do you convince soldiers to go towards bullets?
that's
right?
Yes.
So that's what I think about leadership, is just that example, is you're convincing people to do things that they wouldn't normally always want to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, it's good to have that FBI badge too, because you can always just force them to do it that way. Listen, getting back to your company, because I got to let you get out of here in a minute, man. You're a CEO, but future revenue lines, I know what we're saying is, again, a decision assist software helps police departments, but I know you said that it can also extend to other areas. Public records, a couple of your investors said, hey, retailers can use this.
Yeah.
What other future lines of revenue are you seeing for ForceMetrics is going to help you, stay in those double digits? Yeah,
so, obviously our core is going to be in cities and police departments for sure. The retail line is big, so you got to think that a lot of retailers have, safety and security issues as well, not only in their, stores, but also on their property. And then even delivery and drivers have needs around sort of like understanding safety. So we're expanding into that space. And then as we continue to grow, insurance is a big place. So if you think about just de-risking, cities so that they, not only become safer, but have, pay less in insurance premiums, being able to provide data in a way that's a smart way for them to make decisions. And then the last part is, as we navigate these spaces within cities, it's not just the police department. So if you think about police department for a second, it is the largest line item of any city's budget. From 40 to 70% your taxpayer money is going to go to the police department. Why? They're open 24 hours a day. They'll send someone if needed, and they'll actually answer your call. So, oh, that's very expensive. They see everything too. They see things at the universities and the parks and the schools. So they have a lot of data that doesn't get out there. Being able to bring other city agencies, state agencies, being able to nationalize some of this data so we can tell a story about what's happening in our communities. Because it's important to call out that if I found out today that there were 5 homicides in my neighborhood, I would be pretty afraid. If I found out that there were 5 homicides of domestic partners, unless I'm dating these 5 people, I'm probably okay. So we don't give our community the right information. We just say that there was assaults at the 7-Eleven. Well, there's a big difference between brothers fighting or someone getting randomly punched. So how do we start to sort of demystify the data that is just stats and actually tell a story about what's happening in the community to reduce redlining and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, you're in a very good space. Again, you have that budget item, which is public safety. I mean, cities always will spend money there. If you can penetrate that revenue, right, that's guaranteed. And cloud computing sales expected to rise to $2 trillion by 2030. And that's the software as a service, and that's expected to contribute out of that $2 trillion, $780 billion. It's good for 41% of the market, according to Goldman Sachs. So there you go. Let's let you get out of here, man. Look ahead and close. Two of your investors, Mellody Hobson, again, George Lucas, if you had to say one trait that you need to convince them to give you money, right, what trait would that, for all the people out there that's looking, how did he get money from George Lucas, what's the trait that you need to allow them to come in?
I said it once before, attitude.
Attitude.
And really, when I looked at this, I got on a Zoom, and after about 15 minutes of talking, I remember Mellody said, I'm going to stop you right there. I'll give you whatever you want.
Wow.
Because you are trying to solve a problem that other people are just admiring. And that was like aha, like, wait a second. Okay, I came in with a positive intent. I came in with a good attitude. And wow, to be able to, for someone like her to say something like that was pretty mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
And so that in itself was, how I got through, is just going in with a positive attitude.
Yeah. So all I have to do have a good attitude, and Mellody will give me anything that I want. You
that's think? What that I'll let her people decide that.
Listen,
but yeah,
listen, I'm gonna come in with a smile on my face. You believe that? Gen AI. You hear those words. What instantly comes to mind, and what isn't being talked about when it comes to this technology?
You know, what instantly comes to mind is that we're not giving it all the right data to train on. And so if we think about Gen AI, LLMs, you know, they're sucking up data from the internet. What's interesting is the data that I have, they're not training on that data. They're not training on the, you know, victimized, you know, rape call or a variety of stuff that is very different than an Amazon, you know, user review or something off of Reddit. So you can't go in saying that Gen AI is going to be able to answer everything when it can't train on everything. So as we start to expose more of this data, maybe, but right now there's still very vulnerable information. So, you know, I'm a little hesitant for the moment, and that's why we'll still be in that assist category.
Yeah, absolutely, decision assist. One big idea that can be implemented by 2030 when it comes to cybersecurity.
I don't get to talk about cybersecurity as much anymore. You know, I think the thing that we're going to see a lot of is just, you know, passwordless security. I think you're going to see places like, you know, Abnormal Security and some others have done an amazing job of showing that, you know, if you think about cybersecurity, you know, we talk about password managers, we talk about multi-factor authentication and a variety of stuff like that. At the end of the day, we already have the habits to show that someone is or is not who they are. PayPal and actually Alibaba does a very good job of not requiring authentication because they kind of know all the different factors of how you operate when you're on their website. I think you're going to see more of that where I don't actually need to have any sort of authentication layers because I already create enough data points that says who I am.
Yeah, and cybersecurity will allow that because, you know, you talk to Harry Croker, National Cybersecurity Director, and he says it's 500,000 jobs available in this particular space because people just don't realize this is the future. Like cybersecurity wars, and look what happened when the computer system got shut down. And, you know, just the other day, what was that, CrowdStrike? And look what happened there. So definitely an industry that I'm keeping an eye on. What do you say to that entrepreneur that's about to give up, right? They did it the Andre McGregor way. They went, they worked a lot of fields, they came up with an idea, started with their friend, went ahead, you know, built the software for it, got a little bit of capital, but it's still not clicking for them and they're ready to give up. What do you say to them?
First off, giving up is not failure. Sometimes you have to know when to, you know, move on to the next thing, and that's okay. It doesn't mean, again, failure. I think sometimes we equate those. But at the end of the day, maybe you're not thinking about the problem in the way that it should be. And so I'll give some examples. When I was going through my Series A fundraising, you know, I didn't really quite click for a while that, oh wait, I need to show them a business that can return the entire fund in which they are investing. So when you start to think about market cap and when you start to think about the ability to grow, you know, you have to think a little bit beyond, you know, your hand and from a distance perspective. And oftentimes I got asked the question, well, where do you see this company in 10 years or 15 years? I say, I don't know where society's going to be. Are we all going to wear Vision Pro glasses? I know that we're a data company and we can provide, you know, data in these ways to get to 10, 15 years from now. So oftentimes those people that give up, the vision might be a little bit smaller, which sounds crazy to say because I think they probably think their vision is big. I didn't think my vision was as big until I started to have those conversations with investors that said, no, like think of it this way, think of it that way. So mentorship's a good part of that in terms of making that decision before you give up, that you have a place, you know, for your business.
Yeah, absolutely. Two final things. The first, Forbes BLK, great leadership platform we have at Forbes. Any book recommendation? It's getting cold out, Andre, right? I mean, and I know in Denver it's getting cold, and wintertime, right? This is a good time to practice up on your leadership. Any book recommendation that you will tell that entrepreneur to read?
Yeah. I mean, I spend most of my time reading baby books and parenting books. One of my favorite books that I give out as gifts is The Average is Over by Tyler Cohen. Love Tyler Cohen. He's a futurist, and I think it's still very relevant because it's, you know, really explains sort of man plus machine, not man versus machine. I think that's oftentimes how some people may think about their jobs and a variety of stuff as AI and other technologies come in. So that's the book I'd recommend.
Yeah. I have a book, and if you know, watch this program, you know my book, right? Good to Great by Jim Collins. It's one of my favorite business books. And I like to end these conversations by asking the good to great question. What's the difference between a good law enforcement officer and a great one?
A great law enforcement officer usually can understand and have empathy for the community that they're in from all different perspectives and not just doing it as a job. So, you know, when I look at, you know, sort of that first law enforcement officer that I remember in my life, Officer Bill Stanley, he was my school resource officer, and he, you know, had no reason to spend time talking to me. You know, I was probably a good kid in comparison to some of the other ones that he's dealing with, but he gave me the time so much that he, you know, he understood where I came from in my community, even though he did not look like me. He was not in my neighborhood, and definitely not Jamaican. And that level of connectivity, you can only get that by talking to people. And I think that's why you start to hear people say, well, why aren't officers walking the beat anymore? I don't think it's that they actually need people walking the beat. I think they want to talk to officers. They want to have a conversation and get that information that they used to have back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and even the 90s. So an officer that can really articulate how a community feels because they spoke to their community members, not when they just called 911, because it's easy to talk to someone in an emergency, but when they were just, walking the street, yeah, that's a great officer.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the art of conversation is nothing like that in-person conversation that you have. That's how you got your big raise from Mike Costanora, right? Over bacon and eggs in Palo Alto, right, at that diner, right? It was before that meeting where you had that in-person communication, and that helped you land that money. So great advice. Yeah.
No, and I have to say this, that like I said, I love the human experience.
Yeah.
And so being able to have conversations like this, being able to just, learn from other people, being able to digest that and use that to make the next decision, you're not going to get that from just a computer. You're not going to get that just from AI. Like you have to get out there and actually talk to people.
Yeah, most definitely. And you're definitely not going to get the loan I'm going to ask you for. You got $22 million, and I know you got some money, right? I know you have it. So I'm going to talk to you off camera about that. Andre, thank you so much for making the trip to New York to talk about your business. Really appreciate it. And good luck to ForceMetrics. I hope you solve a big issue, because I know there's a lot of police departments out there that's looking for this type of efficiency while they're in the field. So I appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Andre McGregor, ForceMetrics, and he got $22 million. I don't have that much. Thank you for watching. See you next time.